For this lesson, we're going to spend the entire time in UCS Director. In UCS Director, as we mentioned before, there's a concept of multi-tenancy. The multi-tenancy features allows us to actually assign resources to a specific tenant or provide shared resources across multiple tenants. What we do to make this happen is we define what we call resource groups. By creating a resource group, such as tenant_RG, we can then put physical devices and virtual devices inside of these resource group. So for instance, I'm going to put my VMware environment in this resource group, and by doing that also allows me to put in virtual storage and virtual networking, which has been automatically selected. I can also put physical compute in this resource group. Here I'm going to put in my UCS, done that successfully. Finally, I'm going to put in my physical network and my physical storage. Physical storage is first. I have a NetApp filer that I'm putting in my resource group, and then my physical network. And I'm going to put in my ACI fabric. So now I have a group or pool of resources that I can use to pull from for an individual tenant or for multiple tenants. This allows us to put these devices into a group so we don't have to add these resources one at a time. Now I want to pick those resources based on the requirements of my application. So I can make what's called a service offering. In this service offering, I could have different levels. For instance, SLA 1, 2, or 3, or for instance, platinum, gold, bronze, that type of thing. I'm creating a service offering called platinum. Inside of the service offering, I can then specify the class of resources that I want to pull from the service group. This first group, I'm going to specify the type of compute that I want to put in the group. And I can do that based on the capability or the capacity. So for instance, I could say the amount of memory should equal 16 gig. In that case, I won't pull any servers that are less than 16 gig. Now I want to add an additional service class. For instance, virtual compute. I can specify capacity or resource limits based on a number of different things that you see here. In this case, I want to specify it based on the number of cores. I have to have at least 2. I can keep going until I've defined all the minimum requirements for the applications that I have inside of my environment so that I'll pick the right resources from the resource group. Also, if you notice, as I'm defining these groups, I'm defining whether these can be shared resources that are available to other tenants or whether these should be dedicated resources that are only available to this tenant. The last thing I want to do is create a tenant profile. A tenant profile represents the pairing of one or more service groups to one or more resource groups. Each tenant profile defines the characteristic of infrastructure requirements and application requirements. You can create a tenant profile to meet each possible combination of customer and application. You can associate a tenant profile with multiple service offerings and choose a resource group for each service offering. A tenant profile can be shared by more than one tenant. Please join me for our next lesson, Examining UCS Director Catalogs.